and you're like, oh, it really has been like this really did start in like 2022 and now they're in
Mhm.
2024 in the same place, which was absolutely crazy. I also would have crashed out if I was 4 mod and in a 2 year situationship, but you know. Hi, everyone. Welcome to LoveCast, the BL podcast. I am your host, Alexa, and I have my fellow hosts, Pixie and Kayla, with me today.
Hey.
Hey.
So, before we even jump into today's episode, we wanted to take a moment to address our monthly review that we would typically have released on YouTube for March by this point. Um, but we wanted to talk about why we didn't put out a review on YouTube this month, the implications
Mhm.
of that, and basically why we made the decision not to release it. Um, so, our review for the month of March that was to go out on YouTube was a review of the Japanese BL Our Youth. This was voted on by our Patreons. It was recorded earlier in February and has been released on Patreon for a while now, prior
Mhm.
to any of the news that has recently come out that we're going to address. But the reason we chose not to release this review on YouTube, or are choosing not to release this review on YouTube, is because on March 2nd, the news was released that Kamimura Kenshin, who was one of the lead actors in the show, was arrested for allegedly sexually assaulting a female interpreter after a fan meet that they had done for the show in Hong Kong.
Mhm.
So this news came out in early March. There was news that he was immediately removed from his group. All of the future events for the show had been canceled. So, you can move forward with the idea that this is a very serious accusation that happened against the actor. Um, and so, this review recorded before this news came out. Um, we talked very positively about the show and in connection with that, the actor.
Yeah.
So when it came time to sit down and talk about releasing the review at the end of March, I think we all just kind of felt icky. I don't know if there's a better way
Yeah.
to describe it than icky about putting out a review that was so positively praising someone in light of something so horrible that he had done that we had just gotten news of so recently.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it would have been different if we knew about it before the review and could have addressed
right,
it during the episode. Even
right,
though if we
Mhm.
knew about that, we might not have done it though. But it's like
right.
we always want to be upfront about these things and talk about it because sweeping things under the rug isn't good. But yeah, it just doesn't feel right to put out and have people watch it, us praise it when they might
Mhm.
not know what's going on.
Right.
Um, so yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
we came to that decision to not put the review out publicly on YouTube. We just felt like the timing was off. The way we talked about the actor in connection with the show just didn't feel right in light
Mhm.
of having the news that we had recently discovered. So we are deciding not to release it. And we also just didn't want to not say
Address
anything
it.
about,
Yeah.
why we're not putting a review
Mhm.
out, why we're not releasing this particular review to the public.
Yeah.
So we just felt like it was good to just kind of put that out there and say, we don't fuck with anything that that man was accused of doing, obviously. And we didn't want anything that might come across as sweeping his actions under the rug if people
Mhm.
watch the review without having the context
Yep.
that would have been needed for it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, so we're not putting that review out publicly. Unfortunately, that means there will not be a review on YouTube for the month of March, but we will
Yep.
be starting that back up again at the end of April with our review of Pluto. So if you do like to watch our reviews on YouTube, you can look forward to that coming later in the month of
Mhm.
April.
Yes.
Oh yeah. All right. So getting into the actual meat of today's episode, we are doing a series deep dive today. It is our first series deep dive of season 5 and 2025. And it felt like the first show that really, I don't know, has captivated the BL community in 2025, that started in 2025,
Mm-hmm.
has been this show, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So today we are doing a deep dive of GELBOYS.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So before we get into the actual review, we always like to start with the synopsis. So I will go ahead and try and get my reading skills in line to read through the synopsis. Okay. High schooler Formod is often invited by gel nail boy Chien to get their nails done in Siam Square, his flirting making Formod fall for him. However, when he discovers that Chien has also been inviting TikToker Bua to get their nails done together too, and he realizes he's being kept in reserve to make Chien jealous, Formod decides to use his close friend Bobbin to do the same. So this is a 7-episode series produced by Look World, and it was released in conjunction with exclusively on iQIYI.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, this show, I think we actually did a reaction to the trailer for this on our Patreon, and I
Yeah.
think before watching that trailer, at least it wasn't on my radar like at all before watching
Mm-hmm.
that trailer, but
Same.
we watched the trailer for Patreon and I was immediately like, I need to watch this show.
Yeah.
So I think as soon as we finished recording that day, I watched the first episode of the show and I loved it from start to
Mm-hmm.
finish.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's the first show that I thought right away that this really captures how actual teenager today
Mhm.
experience the world, because I feel like a
Mhm.
lot of shows kind of show these teenagers as almost adults in how they act, even though they're in
Mm.
school and all. They're so, I don't know, not messy, not cringy. but but this was super cringy, but in
Yeah.
a good way.
Yeah. No, like one of the first things I wrote down like in our notes about this show is that the writing is so perfectly balanced and like capturing the modern teen experience in Bangkok, at least what I can
Mhm,
assume is a modern teen experience in Bangkok,
mhm.
while also making you feel for your own teenage experience. Like I was a
Yeah.
teenager in the early
Mm.
2010s. Like that was a long
Mhm,
time ago and I still
mhm.
relate to all the emotions, all of the cringy things they were
Oh
doing to
god,
try and
yes.
get each other's attention.
Totally.
Like it's a universal teenage feeling and it's like that cringiness for the what they're doing like transcends time and it's like I understand you, like I've been there before, but it's also so
Mhm.
painful to watch it
It's
happening
so
to the characters.
Mhm.
painful. I mean, I
Mhm.
never expected to feel this entertained by something that made me feel so cringe.
Mhm.
It's just like, it represented teenagers so extremely well that I'm just like, this feels like it was written and made by a teenager.
It's the way that like everything that happens to the characters in this series makes them feel like it's the end of the world. And I
Mhm.
think that's
Yeah.
what is the most realistic about it is like this thing happens and in maybe like 10 years you'll look back and be like, why was I even
Dear
like
God.
pressed about
Yeah.
that? But in the moment it really, really is truly the worst thing that could happen to you. It feels like
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
captured that so well.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. One of my favorite scenes, actually, I don't know if I'd say is my favorite, but one of the first scenes that left such an initial impact on me when I was like, "Oh, I know I'm gonna feel everything for the show." It's in the very first episode when Formod like breaks up with whoever, like that first girl that he was talking to when the show opens. He breaks up with her and he's like sitting in Lido Connect and he's like sobbing and then he just stops crying and is like staring into the void and then he starts crying again and then he stops crying and he's just like staring into the void and it's like just that like it felt so extreme but then he was like why am I sobbing over this but then it feels so extreme again like the roller coaster of
Mhm.
the emotions that
Mhm.
you go through in that moment. That's when I knew I was like, oh, this is going to be a show that I relate to a little bit too much. Like it's
Yep.
gonna be me thinking back on 15-year-old Alexa's drama a little bit too much.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so Yeah, I mean, we kind of already started talking in on the overall story, the writing, how relatable it felt while still being modern. Um, one of the things that made it feel so modern, I think, aside from the aesthetic, was also like the slang that was in the
Mm,
script. Like
Mhm.
very, very modern, very, very like natural. Like it just
yeah.
felt like actual teenagers talking. And I think that kind of goes to Pixie's point that a lot of these BLs feel not only in aesthetics, but in
Mm,
dialogue, they feel airbrushed. Like
yeah.
they're trying to,
Yeah.
you can, it feels fictional because like the dialogue is just very like not exactly like it's not what something in someone in real life would say.
Yeah.
But this show,
Yeah.
like, it just feels like teenagers talking to each other, the way things
Mhm,
roll off of their tongues, and that's partially
mhm.
the way it's written, and I think partially the execution from the actors.
Yeah.
But it felt just like kids talking, and
Yeah.
like I
Mhm.
don't know, it just felt like everything felt very natural in the way things were worked into the
Yeah, I
dialogue.
think, like, in BLs in general, when you have teenagers, it feels like the words that are coming out of their mouths are very, very thought out, very, like, intentional, and obviously, like, that's what you get when you have a show and just, like,
It's
that's the
scripted.
word
You can
count
tell
you
that it's
get, like,
scripted. Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
scripted.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But this just it just, like you said, it felt natural, it felt weird, it felt like, at times I'm just sitting
Awkward.
there and just like, "What happened? What
Mhm.
what are you saying? What are
Mhm.
you actually
Mhm.
saying?"
It actually
Yeah.
like the logic and stuff. It makes me wonder,
Mhm,
like, I obviously the show was written by adults, I would
mhm.
presume, but like I really wonder, like, did they just study teenagers in their natural habit? Did they like
Right?
consult teenagers?
How
Like maybe
because
they
I
just had
feel like
really young writers who like are just adults who like
out
are
of
actually still connected to
yeah.
that teen
I
experience a
Mhm.
little
mean,
bit.
I because I can like as I write a lot and I cannot get in the mind space of a teenager at all. Like I see them around me all the time and like I my daughter is turning 10 and like I understand but I can't fathom
Connect. Yeah.
why they're acting like they're acting. So it's really impressive that they managed to write this so realistically.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the way that they engage with, like, fandom also in the show is
Mhm.
super, like, Gen Z coded, very, like again, like, very real to the experience of being, like, a fan of something as a
Right.
Yeah.
teenager. Like, oh my gosh, the just, like, being such, like, a fan of a specific person in a group, like how Bobbin and Bua love Lisa, and just, like, the
Mhm.
way that they talk about their love for Lisa and, like, Blackpink and stuff. It's even those little things too that I'm like,
Mhm.
"This is just capturing perfectly what
Yeah.
it's like to be, like, 15 and, like, a super fan of, like, a K-pop group or something like that."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, real teen experience, real fandom experience, like, it all just felt real, and I feel like that word's gonna come up a lot throughout this whole episode is just how real everything felt.
Mhm.
Um, and, like, they worked in the themes of the show so well. I think probably one of the biggest themes, is this idea of, like, navigating friendship versus romance, and
Mhm.
then there's also, like, the other major theme, I think, of finding your own identity, which are both
Right.
things that are very big in teenager years, like,
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things for this show and, you know, it I think it was very hard, like, I think a lot of people recognize, like, when they were criticizing a character in the show, like, "Oh, I don't understand why Boo is acting this way," but then you would come back and be like, "This is supposed to be a 15-year-old kid," like, you can't
Yeah.
apply your adult
Mhm.
logic to them,
No.
but I think, like, a lot of those times when you would feel frustrated with them, it's because you realize, like, these kids don't really know how to differentiate, like, platonic love from romantic love yet, like, the whole reason Bua
Mhm.
and Chien were like this for so long is because Bua didn't know what romantic love felt like until he met Bobbin, so he didn't know that he was keeping Chien on the hook, and you could say the same about Chien and Formod, so, like, this idea of trying to navigate feeling for someone as a friend versus feeling for someone romantically, and also trying to balance having a romantic relationship while not abandoning your friends completely, which they definitely struggled a little bit with that throughout the show.
Mhm.
Um, and then like this idea of identity as well, and tying that
Mhm.
into your relationships, wanting to change yourself for people to kind of get closer to them, or as Caleb put in the notes, like Bua changing his appearance to look more Thai to appeal to what he thinks Bobbin likes. That
Mhm.
was like so. First of all, that was like very
Oh,
emotionally like
it
heavy.
was a
Like
lot.
it was a lot, and I think getting more. There's a whole subsect discussion you could go into about being mixed and that cultural identity and like how that worked into things, which they didn't really explore as much in the show. It would have been interesting to see if they went into that. But this idea of wanting to change yourself to fit someone's ideal appearance, or
Mhm.
even just gel nails becoming like this topic of interest for them because that's what Chien likes to do. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think the themes that they worked in were really relevant to teenhood, if that's a word. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that's a word, but yeah.
Like coming of age, kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love just like how they incorporated that idea of almost like trying to force yourself to like the same things that someone you
Mhm.
have a crush on likes. Like I've done that
Mm.
so much in my life. I probably still do that. It's just like it's so real. Like there was no interest in the gel nails at all until Formad saw Chien
Jim.
doing his nails, getting
Mhm.
his nails done. And then all of a sudden it was like I never even really knew if he enjoyed getting his nails done himself
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
if he just like wanted to use it as a way to get closer to Chien, which is why it's so interesting. Formod is interesting as a character because the whole time I felt like he kind of didn't have his own identity.
Right.
Mhm.
I guess that's what I'm trying to get at is that he kind of would like co-opt parts of his
Mhm.
friends or like people he knows identity and see like how he feels doing it.
Mhm.
But the whole time
Mhm.
it really felt like he didn't really know who he was on his
Right.
own by
Yeah.
Yeah.
himself. Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
It
at the
was
Yeah.
beginning,
interesting.
we all just talked at the same time. Go ahead, Pixie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, just think Format is very like he's got such strong emotion that like he wants people to accept him in his
Mhm.
uniqueness, which
Mhm.
is such like contrasting things because he wants to be unique, but he's basically copying others to be
Mhm.
because he likes their uniqueness. So
Yeah.
it's but I get it. Like you want someone to praise you basically. Like Tian calling him like gel boy is like the best thing that's ever happened to him because
Mhm.
like someone giving you a nickname like that is god tier. No, I think he's very contrasting and interesting and very back and forth, which like it is teenage life.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I was gonna say even from like the very first episode where he like changes his hair specifically to look like Ongli from Pix or Proxy, and then
Mhm.
he's very excited when Bobbin is like, "Oh, you
Robin.
look like Ongli from Proxy,"
Oh,
and
yeah.
then Formon's like,
Mhm.
"What if I go to a Blackpink concert with you?" Like he got that compliment, and he was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
maybe I'll do something like Bobbin likes now." But then like you
Mhm.
do see that fleeting later on, like how his interests change when his interest in the person change, like when he
Mhm.
ditches basically the
Mhm.
Blackpink concert to go get nails done with Chien. Like it does really feel like, and even at like the end of the show, I don't know if he's ever really found his identity.
Yeah.
Um and like
At
that's
this
it, you
at
don't
s
need to.
No, right? At the
Yeah.
same time, they're still teenagers. They've
Mhm.
still got, like, a really long way to go. I,
Mhm.
like I still don't feel like I've reached a point where I understand myself completely, so
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Mhm.
Yeah.
I also love how Formod tries to act like too cool or
nonchalant
anything.
about
He's like,
Oh
yeah,
everything,
god, it's so
he's so
cringe.
nonchalant, but you could tell
but he
he cares so
feels it
much about.
so strongly.
Yes,
It is
like
so obvious. Oh
he is
god, that
so
was
caught up on the airdrop thing. Like that,
yeah,
who knew that an airdrop could cause so much drama? Like
right.
Right.
he is so obsessed with the airdrop thing, but he pretends like he could not care less about
Mhm.
Xian or like Xian paying attention to him. It's just so
Yeah,
real.
Mhm.
right.
Mhm. Him
It's
being like,
probably the most frustrating thing I experienced in the beginning. I'm just like, dude, dude, do not be aloof when you want the attention of this boy. Like, what are you doing?
yeah.
But also teenagers.
Yeah, no, the pretending like he doesn't care, and it was almost like, I think, a way to try and protect himself too, like,
Yeah.
especially when he had the discussion about Chien, where Chien is like, "I don't really wanna have a status," and then
Mm.
Format immediately had to switch and be like, "Oh, that's fine with me too, like, I might find something else someone else I like too," but, like, he was literally on the verge of tears the whole
Yeah,
time,
right.
like, trying to protect
So
himself and,
real.
like, almost his pride, I think, in a way, by, like, not
Mhm.
showing
Mm.
that he was actually hurt by the fact that Chien didn't wanna date him and, like, the relationship wasn't going where he thought it was going.
But with
Um,
that attitude, isn't he basically just copying Tien, trying to
yeah,
be, like,
that
nonchalant about
and that's,
everything?
like, what people found
Yep.
could find frustrating about Format at some time,
Yeah.
I think, is that he was basically being Chien
Mhm.
while getting hurt by Chien being Chien. So, like,
Yeah.
him turning around to keep Bobbin on the hook was doing the same thing that Chien was doing to him, that Chien thought Bua
Mhm.
was doing to him, like, it's just, like, this cycle of everyone
Mm.
hurting each
The
other
drama,
by
the
trying to be each
teenage
other.
drama.
The jealousy.
Yeah, the jealousy, yeah. But, I mean, kinda just segueing naturally while we're talking about the characters into the casting, so most of these actors I wasn't as familiar with, knew who played
Mhm.
Formod. I'd seen him in the Netflix drama Ready, Set, Love. He had a very small role, and
Oh.
he was also queer in that show, which I loved.
Mm.
And then Pied, who played Chien, I think was more of a musician, although he has done some acting. PJ played Bobbin. He is, if you're familiar with the actor Jailer, that's Jailer's younger brother. Jailer was just in
Oh.
Spare Me Your Mercy. Um,
Mm.
and
Okay.
he's also like a very popular, just in general, Thai entertainer and was like in the T-pop scene and stuff like that. And then Leon played Bua. Um, so, all insane. Like, I think all of them except for Leon have had previous acting experience from what I saw, but I was blown away by the acting
Yeah.
from all of them. Like, all of them are people who are, like, in their 20s, early to late 20s, I think. I think
Mhm.
Pied is the oldest at, like, 27.
Mhm.
Um, but, like, they felt like teenagers in the moment,
They
like
felt like teenagers, dude.
Mhm.
Like, if you told me they were teenagers, I would not react.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually surprises me that they're that old.
Mhm. No, like, when I especially, like, Pied, when I looked up and saw that he was 27, he's the one who played, Chien, I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
That's
Oh,
crazy.
I literally never would
really?
have guessed that."
Yeah.
But no, they all did great, and I feel like they all
Mhm.
captured the characters really well. I think, especially in the later episodes, like in episodes 6 and 7, I was blown away by Leon as Bua and like some of the emotional intensity he was capturing in some of those scenes that were really focused on him and Bobbin. Like, he did such a great job, I think.
Like, they've had to had, like, a teenager on set helping them. Like, I'm just like, I don't understand how they could've, like, make this without any, like, teenagers involved.
Yeah. I really wonder if they just like sat in somewhere like Siam Square where like teenagers frequent and just like people
But
watched
at
endlessly.
the same time, I feel like a lot of the things being portrayed was very not very subtle. So it's
Mhm.
like you need to have like intimate knowledge of teenage life to like know what they're thinking because
Yeah.
they do act like they act a way they're not feeling. Like they're hiding how they
Mhm.
actually feel all the time. So just watching them wouldn't be enough. You would have to like, I don't know, interview them or something.
Yeah.
A focus group.
Yeah,
Teenager
right.
focus group.
They went to a school and just started asking. No, I would be so interested to hear the director talk about how they like made it so realistic.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
No, I agree. I'm really curious to learn. There's a lot about the process of the show that, like, from what I've read, is really interesting. That would be really cool to
Mm.
get a lot of like deeper insight on. And that's like just how did you tap into that like so realistically? Like truly a mystery.
Mhm.
And then like for some of the supporting cast, I think probably the most notable supporting cast member is Paper, who plays Fifa. She's an
Mhm.
actress
Mhm.
under Copy A Bangkok. She's been in a number of their different projects. Um,
Mhm.
but I think like one of the things I saw that was really interesting is that the character of Fifa is like a trans girl going to an all boys school. And then I
Mhm.
saw on Twitter that someone had actually shared that Paper herself lived that experience. Like she was a
Yeah.
trans girl in an all boys
Oh.
school growing up. And like she had actually gone viral online when she was a teenager for like basically being this like super cute trans girl in an all boys school. And like
Yeah.
her pictures and stuff went viral online a lot. So I
Mhm.
don't know if that's like they took her personal experience to kind of tap into the character of
Mm.
Fifa.
Mm.
I know I was reading a little bit that some Thai people were saying like it's not uncommon to see like trans kids in like all like a trans girl in an all boys school or a trans guy in an all girls school. And I
Mhm.
was reading a little bit about how like there are schools that will allow them to keep like their preferred hair length while they still have to wear like the masculine uniform for the boys school or the
Right.
feminine uniform for the girls school. So I think it is something that happens in Thailand, but I'd be really curious to see if like they took that from her personal experience as like a trans
Mm.
girl who went to an all boys school growing up.
Mhm.
Um, so she I think was probably like the most notable supporting character. But
Mhm.
also, yeah, I loved Formod's family. Like his mom and his sister were so funny. I love like his mom's introduction was like her like blaring music from their little minivan, like
Right.
out of the like the
Yes.
sunroof window, like telling him to hurry up, and like his sister just being like this little iconic queen, like giving him all this advice and like trying to help him get his life in order. His family was really funny, and like
Mhm.
they ran like a TikTok shop, it seemed like they had like
Yeah.
an online TikTok
Something
shop,
like
which was
that.
like once again
Yeah.
very modern to be like live on
Yeah,
TikTok
right.
selling products
Mhm.
I think
for
like
like your family's business.
yeah, going into like the mom and everything, I feel like the whole show was very focused on showing the generation they're from, because I would like normal shows, it's very ambiguous which generation the parents or kids like they could be. It's so vague how they act that they could
Mhm.
be from any generation ever, but here it's very very obvious.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be like in 10 years people are gonna look back at this as like the show that showed how that generation was.
Yeah. I also like the fact that I'm pretty sure Formod was named after like a musical group that his mom was a
Yes.
fangirl for. Like it's just so funny how like again like going back to fan life being so integral that like they show how you can still be a fangirl as a mom and like that kind of being worked into
Mhm. Never
how
too
that
old.
influenced Formod and like the songs from Formod's like the group he was named after ending up like on all the playlists and stuff throughout the show.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was a fun little nod to like the different generations
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so getting into I feel like the meat of the show is a lot around the production of it because everything about it was just so unique from like the very maximalist Y2K like aesthetic that they had going on in
Yeah.
the clothing and even in like the sets, like all of their rooms, the way all of their rooms were designed with like stickers everywhere and just
Yeah.
stuff. Like the maximalism was
Mhm.
Super
stuff
messy.
everywhere. Like
Super messy.
and like
Yep.
again, that's realistic of like
Yeah.
teenagers having a bunch of shit and houses having a bunch of shit just strewn all
Yeah.
over the place, not
Mhm.
perfectly porcelain, like you can tell that it's just the furniture that the apartment came with. Like the
Yeah.
realism is like having shit
Mhm.
everywhere, having
Mhm.
piles of books and crap all over
Mhm.
your house and
Yeah.
posters all over your room and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
I always go on about like clothes and how I think like the shows are unrealistic because all the actors are wearing like new clothes they got like the day before. And it also I notice it in sets when I'm
mhm,
watching a show and everything looks just clean and whatnot.
yeah.
Even if they're living poorly or whatever, it just everything is like perfectly cleaned and there's no mess. And I'm just like, that's not realistic. I have 2 kids. That is not realistic.
Mhm,
So I really appreciate the mess, but I also think that they balanced the characters and the sets very well because
mm,
if you have a messy set, it can overshadow the characters. Like you can't really focus, but they sort
Mhm.
of manage still to keep the characters in the center of it without
mhm.
distracting too much, and that was really good.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of like intentional, I don't know if blocking would be the right word with like where they
Mhm.
would place the characters in the scenes. Like I think of
Yeah.
the one scene that comes to mind is Formod's like I think he's like sitting in like his family's dining room or something,
Mhm.
and he's just on this swivel chair and there's this big desk that's just like piled with shit around him and there's like an old family computer, but like he's
Mhm.
still like the focal point of the shot. So I think they did
Mhm.
a lot of interesting stuff with like how people were placed in scenes and how they use the the phones that they shot on, which we'll get into more later,
Mhm.
like how they
Mhm.
film the scenes and how shots were set up and stuff like that. That really did make like the characters still feel focused and like these super, almost like overwhelming
Yeah.
shots that they were like sets that they were sitting in.
Mhm.
Mhm. I really feel like the visual aspect of the series is what made it what it was.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Like, even the you could tell this story with, like, any type of aesthetic attached to it, but I
Mhm.
think that this one specifically, like, the fact that it seems to have caused a trend, like, it has set a
Mhm.
new trend is just so cool because, like, I don't know, it catches your eye. It really does. Just, like, it's almost like a it's almost like a Harajuku type style
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
well.
right? I thought that
Eh,
too.
it's very, like, Harajuku Japanese kind of as well, and it
Coded.
just, like
Yeah.
yeah, it just is really interesting to look at. It's
Mhm.
pleasing to look at, and that goes for everything, like, the sets, the way they're dressed, oh my gosh.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
style
Mhm.
is so good, the
Yeah.
accessorizing, the nails, like, all of that, honestly, I feel like I it stuck out to me more than the plot itself at
Mhm.
some
Hmm.
points. It's just
Yes.
how it looked visually.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
almost like that was part of the plot too, like is the
Right.
way that
Yeah.
they were visualized and the clothing and the nails and the stickers, like down to the stickers
Yeah.
and stuff like
Mhm.
that, like all of that was worked in to make it like integral to the plot too.
Mhm. Yeah. And so we all agree that when we go to Thailand, we're getting our nails done, right?
I bet the salon that they shot those nail scenes in
Oh,
is
gonna be
booked out for
busy.
months. They're gonna be booked
Busy.
Probably.
out for months, but maybe by the time we go.
There'll be room.
But yeah, no, I love seeing like how much of a trend it has started in different with different aspects of the show.
Mhm.
Um and then like I think the other thing that really fed into the plot and the way the show felt was the fact that they filmed the show entirely on phones and like with some drone work and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
I it's just such an interesting choice. And like I think
Mhm.
this is like I don't know, like kids in their phones, like it kind of like just like taps into that. Like
Yeah.
kids are always on their
Mhm.
phones. So like having
Yeah.
a show about teenagers filmed on cell phone almost
Mhm.
entirely,
Mhm.
like I don't know, it just works. And there
Yeah.
are definitely like I wouldn't have if I hadn't read that or hadn't watched or read the news that it was filmed on a phone, I I probably would have noticed at some point, but it would have taken me a lot longer. But like watching it through the lens of like knowing how it was shot makes it so much more interesting.
Mhm.
And like seeing how they set up some of the shots. Like there was this one shot, I think of one of the shots of Bobbin where like the phone was like taped to a cabinet with like blue tape pointing down like to film like a downward shot. Like I don't know, it just feels so like cool to know that like that's how they film the show.
Yeah, it shows that like it's not like the equipment isn't the most important thing.
Mhm.
It's your knowledge in your craft that makes for a good scene or show or
Mhm.
whatever. So like equipment and money isn't really like the high production isn't really what makes a show, right?
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
helps, but you can do it without.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and it just, like, adds to the realism of the fact that it seems like they would just show up places and just
Mhm,
Yeah.
press record on the phone, like,
mhm,
I always think about, like, permissions that you have to get for filming in
right?
certain places, and I'm like, "I guess they didn't really need that if they're just
You know,
pressing click on a phone."
right?
It's
You can
really
definitely
interesting.
see in some shots, like, people just walking behind them, like, not, like, being like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like, seeing that they're filming and kind of, like, having to move, like, just people who are, like, going about their day, like, seeing they're filming and kind
Yeah,
of having to move themselves out of the way, or, like,
right.
Mhm.
you can catch people kind of, like, watching the filming, like, the people in the background of shots are, like, watching them
Mhm.
filming, so it really does feel like they just showed up and were like, "Okay, we're
Yeah.
filming at this BTS station," and the people coming off the BTS are, like, swerving around them. So, yeah, it's
I
Sometimes
really
love
it
it.
makes kind of sense that people are watching because, like, teenagers being cringy is actually a kinda stare-worthy
Yeah,
thing.
they're recording TikToks in the middle of,
Right?
street. People are gonna
Mhm.
be watching, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think the ability to, like, adapt how you're filming something, to fit the type of show you're trying to film just really speaks to the director boss Kuno's directing prowess, I guess,
Mhm.
who, like, if you're not familiar with the name, his most famous works to the BL-centric community would be I Told Sunset About You, which is probably his most famous work, and then he also recently directed the movie Paradise of Thorns with Jeff Satter, which are both projects that have been, like, very well praised for the production value, so I think, like, seeing this compared to those other shows and how, like, the equipment they use was probably very different, the type of emotions they were trying to evoke was probably very
Mhm.
different, but they all get praised for, like, being filmed in a way that feels true to the story, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, so I feel
Mhm.
like the production on the show really speaks to him and, like, the team that he worked with and making it feel like everything just worked for the type of story they were trying to create.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely see the similarities and, like, the camera work between I
Mhm.
Told Sunset About You and this show. Like, I Told Sunset About You also uses a lot of, like, the very long close-up shots
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
people, and it's just I can tell, like, it has that director's flair to it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. And I love those shots. I feel like the long shots would just be focused on someone's face for, like, such a long time while you're just watching them go through all of these different emotions. Those were some of my favorite shots that were included in the show. So yeah, I love that it's, like, something that can be seen across his different works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
Mhm.
like, the other thing with editing, like, the transitions, using, like, the stickers and kind of, like, stickers and edits popping up on the screen as they would go through different scenes or, like, emojis popping up on the screen to, like, highlight different emotions and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I always love that kinda stuff when it's integrated into shows, and I think it really obviously fits in with the feelings they were trying to evoke and also, like, the general aesthetic of the show here.
Yeah. No,
Mm.
I love the transitions because it made me realize that a lot of the transitions in BLs are just like the same drone shot of
Mm-hmm.
the city.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's fine. It serves its purpose, but it's not really like, I guess, aesthetically nice to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It just like serves a purpose. I don't know. But yeah, the transitions were really cool. I always remember the one that's like the when Bua it's transitioning from Bua or whatever, and it says situationship survivor.
Yeah.
Just like all big on the screen.
Yeah. No, I love the stickers. I love how they were all kind of tailored to each character and the situations
Yeah.
that they
Mhm.
were going through. And I also love that like they turn them into merch at the end. So like each character has like their own
Yeah.
sticker pack that you can buy, which the whole other discussion can be had about how smart the merch for this show is. But I feel like that's a whole
Mhm.
other like it's just a really cool thing. But yeah, I love how like each character had like their own representative aesthetic of stickers, and then like they would also be using those stickers in the show, putting them on their instruments, or like you'd see them stuck throughout the rooms and stuff like that. So it's also
Mhm.
like in the show while also being like used in the editing to transition into different scenes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the soundtrack, I think music in general was such a huge element of the show. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like I feel like one of the integral parts of like how they determined what the relationship status was like having
Mhm.
Spotify playlists together, and like adding certain songs to those playlists, and using certain titles for those playlists. So
Mhm.
music in general, like the artists that they reference in the show, like BTS, Blackpink, Proxy, For Eve, like all super relevant in terms of like pop culture within Thailand.
Mhm.
And also like, the songs that they were putting on their playlist also like feeding into that, like Bobbin and Formod's entire playlist just being like Blackpink songs because Formod didn't actually really care about the playlist. He just wanted to have one to make Chien jealous and stuff like that. Meanwhile, like he
Mm.
was
Yeah.
adding a bunch of love songs to his playlist with Chien. So the way music was utilized throughout the show, like with actual existing artists, was really interesting, and it felt like
Yeah.
very integral to the characters.
Mhm.
And then of course like any show, they had their own OST. So each individual cast member released an OST, and they had a group one as well. And then like the series theme song was by the T-pop group Bus, No Status Status, which is a currently very popular Thai pop group. So kind of like still keeping their
Mhm.
finger on the cultural pulse by having Bus do the OSTs and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think music was just really, really interesting how it was used throughout the show and for the different characters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the OST is just so good.
It
It's
is.
just so good. The
Yeah.
music production on it, on all of it, is really good.
Mhm.
I also noticed, like, I think the music was one of the first ways that people realized that the show didn't start in the current day because
Mm.
people were noticing that like early on they were only using T-pop songs from like 2021 and 2022, and then
Mhm.
like as time went on, like they started like towards the end of the show they were using songs from 2024 and like recent trending TikTok songs. And so like then when you get that, there was that moment where Chien and Formod were discussing still being in a no status relationship, where Formod has been like, it's been 2 fucking years. And you're like, oh, it really has been. Like, this really did start in like 2022. And now they're in
Mhm.
2024 in the same place, which was absolutely crazy. I also would have crashed out if I was Formod and in a 2 year situationship. But, but yeah, I thought like that was so smart to like use without explicitly saying it, like having, and I'm sure there are other like timestamps and stuff like that that people were pulling, but like using songs and like having people kind of pull that information from the songs and the way they were incorporated
Mhm.
into the show, and like the trending sounds that Bua was dancing to at that time being from 2021 and 2022, like it was very smart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah, I mean that's like the general run through of like some of the more general run through of the overall story, I guess. But some of the themes and stuff that we wanted to dive a little bit deeper on. Obviously, the use and significance of social media throughout the show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's uncommon for shows to utilize social media and like work in social media to them
Mm-hmm.
at this point in time. But this
There's
show
been more and more of
specifically,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Um, this show specifically, like theming entire episodes around like certain apps or
Mm-hmm.
social media apps. Like episode 1 was all about airdropping, and episode 2 was focused around Spotify, and they had an episode that was like focused around TikTok. So like each episode kind of having a specific aspect of the phone or social media
Mm-hmm.
app that was also kind of relevant to the character that the episode was
Right.
focusing on.
Mhm.
And just like the significance of social media and literally everything that they
Right.
did in the show. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's very reflective of like how teenager experience the world nowadays. Like everything is like the app or like I noticed with even my kids, like my daughter, she's 10 years old. She has kids in her class that have a phone, have Facebook, have
mhm.
TikTok, all of like they're 10 years old. I've told her that she isn't allowed until she's 16.
Don't they even use doesn't Formod use ChatGPT also at one
He
point?
does. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, he uses Chat GPT. Like they like any kind of like modern technology that you can have on your phone, I feel like they
Mhm.
referenced in this show, and like how teenagers use it modernly was referenced in this show.
Mhm.
Um it does make me curious. Like I do wonder like is airdropping photos to someone as a way to show interest, like is that specifically in Thailand, or like do all teenagers do
Does that
that?
happen?
I
I
think
don't
like
Hmm.
know.
creating playlists for and with someone is like universal. Like you can even go back to like making CDs, like burning CDs
Mixtapes.
and
Yeah.
mixtapes for people, but it makes me curious to like
Did I sound old now that I said mixtapes? I just realized tapes were out when prettier like a long time ago.
my
Mhm.
for my generation it was definitely like burning CDs. Like it's like we would burn
Right.
CDs and make playlists on those, and then we integrated to like the making playlists on your iPod and then the Spotify playlist, which or like 8
I
tracks. I
could
don't know if
play a
anyone remembers
cassette
8
tape.
tracks playlists.
I could play a cassette tape in my car.
Yeah.
I feel so old, dude.
Hey, such is life.
Oh my god.
But yeah, like some of the stuff was universal. Like playlists as a love
Mhm.
language, I feel like will always be a universal thing. But then like
Yeah.
some of the stuff
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, is that like
Is that a
just a
cultural thing?
modern thing? Is
Because
it a Thai teenager thing? Like I'd be really curious
I've
to hear more about that.
noticed I've noticed like here in Norway, the teenagers have like a real focus on Snapchat. Like
Mhm.
everyone
Mm.
uses Snapchat and like they're just sending pictures of their faces in like weird
Yeah.
angles with
Yeah.
no text on it. And I'm just like, why?
It's like all about keeping a streak with someone, like that's a big
Or-
thing, is like keeping
Yeah.
your daily streak and stuff like that. Yeah, I genuinely don't. I think teens here still do use Snapchat to some extent, but I think
Oh, it's
here
huge
TikTok is
here.
probably
Mhm.
the biggest one at this point in time. Like TikTok is
I don't see a lot of teenagers on TikTok. They use Snapchat and they use there's like this function that you can sort of use like a TikTok on Snapchat
yeah,
that they use.
I haven't used Snapchat. Like Snapchat was a
Dude,
for me,
I've
my generation, Snapchat was like popular when we were in like high school and university. And now like
yeah.
Snapchat is seen as like I don't use Snapchat anymore.
I only use Snapchat with my family. Like we have a family group. We send pictures of the
Mhm.
kids and stuff. But
Mhm.
my boyfriend's little brother is a lot younger than him. And I've seen him use
Yeah.
Snapchat in that way. And I'm just I don't understand it, and I understand that I'm old, but I don't understand it. But I also think it's very unique for maybe for Scandinavia that Snapchat is that ingrained in teenage life.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, my view of like I feel like the general consensus is that like in the US, Snapchat and Kick are like the two places where people get groomed.
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah,
like a
When we were
that's
growing up,
true.
that was you were getting
That is
groomed on
still
Kick.
true here.
Yeah.
there's like there's this whole like it's not like a meme because it's like a serious thing, but
Yeah.
it's this like unfortunate trend where people are always like YouTubers and influencers use Snapchat to groom people
Right.
or
Yeah.
whatever. So that's like what my current view is of Snapchat. Like I feel like
Mhm.
here it's older millennials who still use
Yeah. I
Snapchat.
was like
Right.
older millennials or like washed up Vine celebrities who like have like subscription services on
Oh
there
my
that they
god,
still
the
want to keep relevant. Like the David
yeah.
Dobrik's and people like that who he does have
Yes,
some
exactly.
allegations against him. So allegations allegedly. But yeah, like
Mhm.
that kind of thing is what TikTok or Snapchat is associated with here.
No, we've had
Yeah.
news articles about that stuff happening here too.
Mhm.
Parents not paying attention, but it's still very, very much used. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
yeah, it just makes me curious to see like or like the close friends stories like I
Mhm.
personally never use my close friends, but,
I've
like, the
never
idea of,
used
like,
it.
taking people in and out of your close friends to show that, like, they're, like, your person that you're trying to, like, impress
It
and stuff like that.
it
I
feels
could
very much like MySpace back in the
mhm,
day.
or, like, setting your AIM
Mhm.
status
Yeah.
to something specific, like,
Yeah.
we have our own, like, generational versions of that for sure.
Oh my
Oh my
god.
god.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
yeah, and then, like, I'm, like, cringing
Yeah.
thinking about the shit I used to do.
No,
Oh,
same.
like
Uh, and then of course, like with we see in the show with like social media, obviously, like there's that sense of wanting validation.
mm,
Mhm.
So like anytime they put like someone on close story, it's because they
they have to
want or close friends, it's because they want them to
and they're
see it.
checking it constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're
Yeah.
always like, did this person watch it? How many people watched it? And then with like
Mhm.
Bua and his TikTok, it's like, how many people are viewing this? What can I do to get more views? Like this
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
constant need for like
It's a
validation
great.
through
Yeah.
social media.
And also, like, Bua's dream of like, his dream of wanting to be an influencer is such a Gen Z thing. Like,
Dude.
Yes.
I feel like our generation was probably the first where, like, being someone online could be a career. Because I feel like we have the
Mhm.
first generation of, like, YouTubers who do it as a
Yeah.
career, but now,
Yeah.
like, it being switched to just, like, wanting to be an influencer as your
Yeah.
career, like, it's such, like, a Gen Z, Gen
It is.
Alpha
Dude,
thing.
you know what my daughter told me? No, I've told her she's not allowed to do anything on YouTube until she's, like, of age and can decide herself, but she told me that she was gonna start making, like, gaming videos because that was so
She
easy,
wants
and
to be
she's
a
gonna be
streamer.
so famous from it, and I'm just like, "Oh, dear God. You sweet child.
Oh,
You sweet child."
oh, yeah. That's what my brother does. He's
Yeah.
does the like faceless YouTube gaming
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah.
But it is very much like people always say, like, you ask kids in school, like, what they
Mhm.
wanna be when they grow up, and
Yeah,
so
so
many of them say, like, YouTuber
or
or
Yeah.
influencer
TikToker.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. But no, definitely like Bua, and I think that was one of Bua's big things too, is like his one of his big character arcs was like going through that almost like the need for validation with his TikTok and then getting rid of his
Mm.
TikTok completely and then like starting it over again and like kind of
Mhm.
going through
Mhm.
this like rebirth almost of Bua
Mhm.
after coming to terms with and understanding his feelings better. And like in the end, he was like he still went back to dancing on TikTok, but without the same need for the likes and the
Yeah.
validation
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
same extent that he was needing previously. And like the
Mhm.
whole idea of like one of the main reasons he kept Chien around was because they got a lot of views together on TikTok, and then like him realizing the impact of that on his relationship with Chien, and like, yeah, I don't know.
Mm.
It was very interesting to see like the relationships with their social media change, or like Bobbin
Mhm.
with his screenshots from his line conversations, his
Oh my
900
gosh.
screenshots that he had with Formod, and then like the first time he screenshotted his conversation with Bua, and you're like, oh, I see what that means. Like you understand like
Mhm.
how each thing is significant for each character.
Mhm.
But probably
Mhm.
the funniest one to me was Formod trying to get FIFA to break up with him by posting an AI generated video of them kissing on Facebook
Oh my
and be
god.
like, happy 1 month anniversary. Like
Like, delete
he's
it, delete it.
so he's so goofy. I was
Oh my god.
crying laughing
It's
when he
so
did that.
cringe.
And like
Oh,
obviously he was going through something because he was like sobbing while he was doing that. But like
Mhm.
that being like his choice of like
So
how, because he knew
dramatic.
that would piss her off, of like
Yeah.
how to get her to break up with him. Like, oh, it's just so
oh
funny.
my gosh.
That's so real.
Personally, my favorite was, yeah, I love the Zoom call, the
Oh my
little Zoom
god.
meeting that they had near the
The
end.
Zoom
That
meeting.
honestly might have been my favorite because, like, I don't know if they like went into it with all the decisions being really intentional, but like the fact that Formod had like the camera with the down angle, and
Mm-hmm.
then like Bua was muted whenever he was
Oh
ranting or something. And the filter that he had on, and like Bobbin was, oh my gosh, him like sitting too close to the screen with just like a
yeah.
blank face. Like, I don't know if they did all of that intentionally, but it was just so
It was
funny
so
because again, it was so real.
It was
Mhm.
so it was such an
Oh,
intense scene to all be happening on a Zoom call, and, like, the fact that, like,
yeah.
they was just, like, on their teacher's Zoom account, like, they just like, Chen just showed up
Yeah.
after class and, like, was on his teacher's Zoom account, like, having this intense,
Literally.
like, relationship dividing Zoom call,
Oh
and,
my
yeah, like,
god.
Bobbin with, like, the background filter because he doesn't want anyone to know that, like, he was in his family's restaurant.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just so like it was so funny, but also like such
Oh
a
my
tense
god.
scene to be watching while all of these like dramatic relationship moments were happening.
Oh
Mhm.
my
But
gosh. It kind of reminded me of like an episode of Catfish when they
oh
confront them. The
yeah,
COVID ones where they confront them on Zoom.
yeah. Oh my
Like,
god.
it
And
felt
yeah,
like that.
I always get like not jump scared, but like when COVID is like referenced in shows, I'm like, God, yeah, that is like a relevant thing. Like them all getting COVID, like was just like I feel like for so long, everyone, when COVID was still being taken seriously, people would tiptoe around addressing COVID in shows. But like, this being like someone getting COVID and like the whole class having to transition to a Zoom call, kind of it's just like
Mhm.
such like it's a natural part of teenage life now. Like I know like in my city, like if there's a snow day, the kids don't get snow days anymore. Like they go to virtual learning. Like, like Zoom being normalized because of COVID and Zoom classes being normalized because of COVID is such an interesting
Mhm.
element to have in there as well. But yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, I forgot that I added this, but I also just think it's interesting how the younger generations are less about labeling, like, what they
Mm,
are and their
Right.
relationships. Like, the whole thing is between Chien and Formod is, like, that they don't label what they are, and, like, no
Mhm.
one really
no status,
labels.
status.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
no status, that's kind of what everyone does throughout the show, and
Mhm.
Hmm.
they just, I like how it just shows that, I don't know if it's just, like, the younger generation is just more open, I
I think I
guess.
I I find it so interesting how, like, the generations have evolved because we were, like, my generation were, like, we had to put everything in a box, we have to label everything, we had to, like everyone should know where they fit, who they are, everything, like, we found new words to express who we are and
Mhm.
label
Mhm.
us to feel included. But this Gen Z and newer generations are more open to like, okay, we don't want to be labeled. We
Mhm.
don't want to fit into a box. And it's such an interesting progression
Mhm.
of life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No. Yeah, I think they're and I feel like this is both in terms of, like, identity, in terms of, like, sexuality, and also just,
Mhm.
like, in terms of, like, how they define their relationships on the show, which is, I think, what Kayla was kinda talking about with, like, the no status. Because like,
Yeah.
my thing was, like, when we were growing up, like, being Facebook official with someone was, like, the
Mhm.
big thing.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
like, there was so much importance on defining your relationship and, like,
Mhm.
having there be official indicators of being with someone on social media. Um, and now it's like, trying to define their relationship is why FIFA broke up with Formad, or, instead of having set relationship statuses, like, you soft launch a relationship by posting
Mhm.
pictures of you guys holding hands, or like things like that. So yeah, I think the way that relationships are defined and like shared with the public have changed
Mhm.
differently. And then like, yeah,
Mhm.
also just like not really having definitions for, and I think this is in general like more of a thing with BL,
Yeah.
is like you don't as often see like sexuality being labeled, but I think in this
Mhm.
show it also kind of feels like it. We talked about this recently in a episode 2, where like younger generations don't feel as much the need to put themselves in the boxes of
Mhm.
labels around sexuality, which is why we just see the term
Mhm.
queer being used a lot more
Yeah.
often. And
Mhm.
even though I don't think they ever specifically said anyone's labels in that show, it kind of feels like that. Like everyone's
Mhm.
just queer and it's just the normal thing and it's just
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
questioned at all. And that kind of
Yeah.
feels like, in some ways, younger people have a lot more freedom to just kind of have that be the
Mhm.
norm. And
I
in other ways, it's getting worse, but in some ways, it's a lot more
I
normalized for
feel
them.
how the language has evolved, it's more inclusive. I think that before we thought that we needed to find words and labels for
Mhm.
everything to be inclusive, but we've discovered that inclusivity is more about like not putting everyone in their own little booth gang,
Mhm.
like we're all under one umbrella kind of
Mhm.
thing. So yeah, I like even the word situationship. It's like
Mhm.
it's a
Mhm.
newer one to sort of get away from, okay, are we dating? Are we whatever?
Right.
Mm,
Right. There's more than just like dating or not dating. You can be in
yeah.
a talking stage, you can be in a
Mhm.
situationship. Like, yeah, there's a lot more broadness now, I guess, with relationship labels and definitions and things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. I love the casualness around this group of boys doing, like, things that could be considered, like, feminine, or
Yeah.
things
Mhm.
that, like, girls
Yeah.
would do,
Love
like
that.
getting their nails done, even, like, the
Mhm.
way they dress, like, maybe wearing a crop top or
Mhm.
something, like,
Mhm.
there even
Love
isn't
that.
a lot of, um, restriction with, I guess, gender expression, like, the way that
Yeah.
Mhm.
they physically express themselves.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah. Like the terminology used, like Formad loves to use the word fab. Like his fab
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
like his word that he always used. Like, yeah, I just love how more neutral everything was in terms of not having as many
Yeah.
gendered expectations
And
around the
that goes
characters.
into, again, not labeling everything. Like, okay,
Mhm.
feminine, masculine, who cares? Let's just
Mhm.
do whatever. That's one thing that I really love about newer generations is this just freedom, like true freedom. They have to express themselves and not fit into stereotypes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I envy that. Like, I wished. Like, it brings its own drama, but I envy
Right.
that because I would have fit so well into that when I was a teenager.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then I guess kind of just the last point about the show was just talking about the cultural impact of the show. Like,
Mhm.
I haven't even like not even in terms of how the show has trended, because I feel like, and this is a little bit different from other shows, they definitely haven't put as much, at least the production side of things, I feel like they haven't put as much of that emphasis on trending. So like not even talking in that aspect, but just talking about the show and elements of the show being everywhere. Like gel nails have become the new thing in Thailand. Like every other person I see on Instagram has their nails done now is getting gel
Mm,
nails. And like, it's I specifically think of like Poom from My Standing saying that like he's wanted to get
Mm,
his nails done like that for a long time. And like
mm,
now he's felt almost more of like the freedom to be able to do it. And I don't know if that's
mhm,
like solely the influence of that show, but like seeing it be more normalized in media and seeing the people around them start to do it, like,
mhm.
you see so much more expression in that way. So like
Right.
seeing the gel nails become a trend for everyone, and like the songs from the show have gone viral all over TikTok. The red flag one, it has like the little finger heart dance that I cannot do. Um and then just like the general aesthetic, which like I think the maximalist Y2K is a pretty like modern aesthetic as it is, but like I've seen a bunch of photo shoots for magazines in Thailand and a lot of artists in Thailand kind of trying to, I almost want to say like create, I almost want to call it like the GELBOYS aesthetic, like kind of recreate that
Mhm,
aesthetic and like photo shoots and personal photo shoots that they're doing in magazine photo shoots. So it's really interesting to see like the impact that the show has had in terms of like
mhm.
aesthetic and how that's like influencing modern Thai culture right now,
Yeah.
pop culture.
Yep.
So, yeah. And I mean, I've
yeah.
seen it from people outside of Thailand too. Like everyone who's watching the show like wants to get gel nails done. I want to get gel nails done, but they're expensive as hell here.
Mm.
So, you know, it's interesting to see how it's kind of like creating these new almost like little micro fashion trends within the community who's watched it.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I mean, that was all we had written down. Is there any other topics or moments or elements about the
Mm.
show that anyone feels like we missed discussing or that they really wanted to bring up?
Mm. I've seen
Mm.
some people compare the show to sort of the aesthetic of Scum as an example. Uh,
Mm.
and I can totally see that. Like it's different generations, but it still has like the same vibe.
Hmm. I kind of
Mm.
think of, and not necessarily even like aesthetic wise, but in terms of the way like the relationships and friendships work in the show, it made me think a little bit of the Australian show Heartbreak High, which is like a
Yeah.
modern
Oh.
Australian teen
Mhm.
show. Like I kind of felt that a little bit, but within like the Thai BL sphere, it really is kind of like I can't think of
Yeah,
another
it's
show that
unique.
can be
Yeah.
compared to for
Mhm.
many different reasons. Like it's very, very unique in that sphere
Very
of media, I
creative,
feel like.
very innovative in the space. But, like,
Hmm.
I've been complaining for years at this point that Thai BLs do tend to start to feel the same,
Hmm.
because no one's
Mhm.
doing anything new. Like, there are, of course, shows that are, like, shining stars in the dark, but a lot of the shows coming out just fall on their faces because we've seen it before. We like
Mm.
even if it's a new plot or whatever, it still feels like I've seen it 1,000 times before. So it's so nice to be able to watch a show that just feels so uniquely different. And it
Mhm.
was the same feeling I had when I watched Game Boys, actually.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at my notes and I I wrote, "Whoever thinks women are more emotional need to watch this series."
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That is true, though.
They were
Oh
going
my
through.
gosh. I
Yeah.
also I guess we kind of touched on this, but near the end, or I guess at the end of the series, I was kind of feeling like, like I wanted to tell them, you guys, it's okay to grow apart from friends and like
Mm,
not want to mend the relationship. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to be friends. I was
mhm,
No.
kind of thinking that, but I guess like their friendship persevered in the end, which was a
Right.
happy ending.
Mhm.
But there's just something about it where I was like, you guys don't have to force yourselves to like
Mhm.
be
mhm.
friends forever.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think that is a very like high school thing of thinking that like your high school friends are going to be your best friends
Mhm.
forever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the end of the show, like Formad and Bobbin are seniors. Ends like in his second year of university, I think. Maybe still in his first year. And then we don't really know how old Bua is, but I think he's at least a year younger than Formad and
Mhm.
Bobbin.
Mm.
So yeah, I feel like they're still kind of in that phase where they're like, we're best friends forever. But there are moments where you're like, are you guys like really it's like that, like, are you really even friends? Like, do you really even know
Yeah.
that much about each other? Like,
Mhm.
For
um,
real.
sometimes it did feel like that for them. And like, I wouldn't have been mad like if Chien and Formod kind of didn't end up together. Like I feel
Mhm.
they were at like a restarting point at the end of the show, like starting over. But, I think there are a lot of people who thought maybe it would end up with no one together.
Mhm.
And it doesn't feel like they tried to pigeonhole the happy ending. Like it still felt like it all
Mhm.
came to be naturally. But I also
Mhm.
think it totally would have made sense if like certain people there didn't end up together romantically or still being friends.
Yeah.
But I think it still worked.
It still
Yeah.
works.
I like how it ended.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think that is all for our review deep dive of Gel Boys. I think we had a lot of fun watching the show. I know I had a lot of fun. I felt a lot of emotions. I was very stressed, but like in a good way. Stressed for like these kids. I was like,
Oh,
let me
so
help you.
cringe. Yeah.
But it was a really fun show to watch. And I think that seems to be the common sentiment that I've seen
Mhm.
across the audiences that have watched it. I think a lot of people will highly recommend it, and I know I would highly recommend it to people to
Mhm.
watch as something very fresh and very different in this genre. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Same. Yeah.
let us know your thoughts on Gel Boys. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Who were your favorite characters? What were your favorite moments? Share all that stuff with us down below.
Yeah.
I'll be looking forward to reading everyone's comments. And if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to comment, but also like and subscribe and share the episode with your other friends who enjoyed Gel Boys. I'm really curious to kind of see everyone's thoughts on the show. And all that stuff really helps us out with the algorithm as well. And you can also check out our Patreon for early access to episodes, reviews, exclusive Patreon episodes that we're doing monthly now, and lots of new content that we're hopefully cooking up in coming months. So you can check us out there. And that's also a great way to support the podcast if you're interested in doing that. But otherwise, that is all we have for you guys in this episode, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
High schooler Formod is often invited by gel nail boy Chien to get their nails done in Siam Square. His flirting. See, there we go. The sentence threw me off. Okay, let me start over again. High schooler Formod is often invited by gel no. Oh my god. I'm gonna edit all of this out, but it's fine. Okay.
It's okay.
I'm putting too much pressure on myself right now.
Mhm.